Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. We're out here in the carving tent, and today we're going to talk about chainsaws for chainsaw carving. This is basically an opinionated video. It's my opinion for beginners, and then for stepping your game up, what kind of chainsaws you could be looking at. We're going to discuss battery chainsaws, gas chainsaws, basically those two, just battery and gas. I know I made it sound like there was going to be a third option, but there's really not. Because I don't have corded electric saws. And so we are going to go over the battery saws that I run and what I use them for. We're going to go over the smaller gas saws I run, what I use them for, and some of the saws that get up into a medium to a little bit bigger, and what they're for. So this is going to help you out if you're a beginner carver, you're thinking about chainsaw carving, and you're like, geez, what should I invest in? What should I start with? And, you know, when do I step it up? So if this is interesting to you, give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and stick around because we're going to get into it. So as you guys can see, like I said, I got a lot of different chainsaws here under the tent. Now, let's start with the battery saws. When I've been carving live lately, I've been running battery saws, and I've had a lot of questions about them. One thing nobody's asked is about keeping a watchful eye on temperatures when it comes to your batteries for your saws. Now, because we're out here carving, this isn't a heated space. In the winter, I make sure to bring my batteries inside. These come inside every night. They're in the warm air. We don't want these to freeze. They could hurt the longevity of the battery. So if you're going to run battery saws, make sure your batteries come into a warm climate every evening, even during the day. If you're out here, it's 20, 30 degrees. Don't just go in the house or in the shop and leave your batteries out to get cold. Bring them in. Keep them warm as long as you can, especially if you're not using them. If you're using them, it's a little bit different. Now, I wanted to hit that because we still have some cold weather. I've been carving in the cold, and I just thought it would be something good for you guys. So I've actually got 4 battery saws here. You guys might see just the 3. We've got this GTA 26. Now, I'm going to start with my smallest battery saw, and we'll kind of work our way up through the gas saws in that manner. I've had people ask, what should I get for battery saws? Now, the GTA 26 is a really small steel saw, right? This, honestly, guys, this is more of a novelty thing. I had to customize a bar. I'm running stock chain that is meant for these. I customized the handle. I don't recommend this for a very beginner. This was something fun. This was a purchase I made just to make, not a necessity. Could you get by with this? You could. It carves slow, it cuts slow, it'll do detail work, but you also have to keep in mind that you've got to make a custom dime tip bar. This was an old bar of mine. I cut it down, I made it fit, did a bunch of custom work in order to make that happen. So would this be a very beginner great idea? Not necessarily, guys. All right, this is something down the road. If you want to monkey around with it, then go ahead and make that investment. These little batteries don't last long. I actually have 2 for when I'm playing around with this thing, but again, fun, great little tool, great for trimming limbs, doing that kind of stuff. In the long run, though, it's not really an investment for beginner carvers. Next up, I've got my MSA 160. Now, all my battery saws are MSA. This means they run on the AP line, which is the Pro line battery. The MSA 160 is the smallest one in this line. Now, when I got this, it came with a 1/4 pitch sprocket. So with that, I'm able to put a 1/4 pitch dime tip bar on it with 1/4 pitch 43 gauge chain. Now you could run 53 or run 050 chain, 50 gauge if you'd like, but I like the 43. That's what I like to detail with, that fine little chain. Now when you go to buy it, you can just buy the 12-inch. You got to make sure those links match up though to the proper number. Some of this stuff you guys are going to have to do a little research, you know what I mean? You got to look into it. If your dealer is like, I don't know what a carving bar is. Listen, carving bar, detail bar, dime tip bar. 3 different names for the same bar from steel, okay? I've had that in conversation. Well, where's the carving bar? Right here, dime tip bar. No, I want the carving. This is the carving bar. This is a hard nose bar. There's no sprocket in it, all right? You do not use this for blocking. Minor cuts, detail work, removing very small pieces of material to get in for detail work. That is it. This is not a blocking saw. But this gets used from anything from little carvings to great big carvings. This saw has been around the block. So with this saw, when I got it, I was able to get an AP160 battery. They no longer exist. I recommend the 300 or the 300S. You'll get longevity out of your carve times, like 40 minutes on average, and you should be pretty happy with it, in my opinion. Now, the next step up from that I run is an MSA 200C. Again, this, I can't remember if it came with or if I swapped it out, honestly, but I've got a 1/4 pitch sprocket. A lot of times, as you go up, saws will go to a 3/8. This particular saw on mine has a 1/4 pitch sprocket. I put a 10-inch bar on it, so it runs 1/4 pitch chain. It's 43 gauge, not 50, and I like it. It rips. For an MSA 200C to have a 10-inch bar, this is an awesome little detail saw. This works great for the little carvings, the cardinals, little bears, little pieces. I will do little blocking, little detail work before moving into the dime tip bar. All right, nice little saw though. Now with these, all you gotta do is put bar oil in them and charge them. If you do get one battery saw, I recommend 2 batteries. That's, you know, the best way to go. So one's on charge while you're running the other one out. The next in my battery lineup is the MSA 220C. Now this saw runs best with an AP 300S. You get a little more juice, about the same run time on average for carving, but you get a little more oomph behind it. This saw runs great, plenty of power to this saw, keeps the noise down. It's not crazy loud. Now this saw came with a 3/8 pitch, 16-inch bar, 50 gauge chain, I believe, when I bought it. I got rid of that 3/8. I put a 1/4 pitch sprocket on there, and I put a 12-inch bar with 43 gauge 1/4 pitch chain. Now, if you don't know what all that stuff means, right, write it down, Google it up. All the stuff that I have put on here on these saws has come from steel. So far, these parts have been interchangeable as far, I believe they were interchangeable as far as sprockets go. So you gotta look, you gotta do a little bit of research sometimes to figure these things out. If your dealership doesn't know a whole lot about carving, they don't want to deal with it. Sometimes they just say no, I have no idea. So you gotta dive in, you gotta look. I don't have the sprocket part numbers though, otherwise I'd give those to you guys. But the you know, like this detail bar, here's your part number right here, okay? 3005 000 3105. That's the bar, okay? That's the dime tip carving bar, dime tip bar, carving bar, detail bar, whatever the heck you want to call it, that steel makes. That's it. So that is the battery lineup that I'm carving with. Now, a little addition that I do with these, I wrap them with tape for bicyclists. Usually it goes on the handlebars of your bicycle. I wrap it with some black tape. There's not a ton of anti-vibration in these, and if you're spending 6, 7, 8 hours a day carving, you'll feel it. I also take some stuff that helps with that, but at the same time, just that little bit of padding on the handle can help a lot. So let's jump up a shelf, all right? Well, this is a pro line. We're gonna jump up to a homeowner line and like a farm and ranch kind of saw. Now, if you guys are new, you watch my videos, see I'm always like, start with an MS-170. Why? A lot of people don't like them, a lot of people love them. I recommend the MS-170 because it is cheap. It's cheap. It's the cheapest way to get into it. $199 at the moment. That could change by the time you watch this, who the heck knows. But a 170, 200 bucks, you're carving, right? You need to make sure you have chaps, safety-toed shoes, safety gear, PPE, all right, guys? That's the important thing. Get your PPE first, get your saw, and then accumulate from there. Anyway, up here on the top shelf, all right, or the middle shelf, we got the MS-170. Now, you can start with the MS-170 stock. You can do some blocking. You'll only be able to get so far with that 16-inch bar they come with. They got a 3/8 pitch stock, 16-inch bar, 50 to 43 gauge chain. It kind of depends on the year, if you buy it used, things like that. But a lot of times you're running 43, yeah, you're running 43 gauge chain at 3/8 pitch. This particular saw, I put a 1/4 inch in, getting tongue-tied, guys. I put a 1/4 pitch sprocket on this particular saw, and then what I've done is I have put a 12-inch bar, 1/4 pitch, 43 gauge chain. So this MS-170 rips. Why? You've shortened the distance that chain's got to go, and now this flies. Great for detail work, great for blocking small carvings. Now say all I can afford is the 170, right? And I don't want it stock because I can only get blocky bears or blocky pieces. That's okay. Order up the 1/4 pitch sprocket. You can order up, you might be able to get this bar in a 14-inch for a little bit more reach with 1/4 pitch chain, 43 gauge. Use that for blocking, right? It's a little bit smaller than the 16, a little bit easier for control. So there's that setup. Now you have a 1/4 pitch sprocket with a bar for blocking. You can take that bar off. You can order yourself up the dime tip bar we already talked about with 2 chains. Every time you buy a bar, buy 2 chains. That's just how I do it. One breaks, you can pop one on, you're good to go. Now, the bar we talked about on this battery saw will fit on here once you swap that sprocket out to a 1/4 pitch. Now, when you go into the store, don't just assume what's on it. Look at the bar. The bar has all your information, guys. All your information is on the bar. This is not stock, remember? But right here's your bar info. 12-inch, 1/4 pitch, 43 gauge, okay? 12, 1/4, 43. And that's how many drive links you need. So you gotta match these numbers up to the chain to fit the bar. Just keep that in mind. So right there you can have a setup for carving, okay, out of your 170. But it doesn't mean it's not 200 bucks anymore, right? 200 bucks is stock. So if you're gonna do all that stuff, right, you're gonna buy the 170 for 200. You're gonna buy a sprocket for like 35. You're gonna buy a carving bar anywhere from, let's just say 80 bucks, okay? You bought a new 12-inch or 14-inch bar. Now you wanna buy 2 chains. Those are $30 a piece. I'm not doing the math in my head. Hopefully you are. You bought the dime tip bar so you could swap them back and forth. We said that was, I don't know, 80, 90 bucks. But you bought 2 more chains. There's another $30, $35 each, right? So now you have one saw dedicated set up for that, but you've invested quite a bit of money. So you get rolling, you get making some money, and you say, okay, I want a second saw. I want another saw. Right. The next question is are you going to continue with smaller pieces, or are you going to go medium pieces to large? If you're going to continue small to medium pieces, you could just step up to like the 180. Now, everything we talked about doing on the 170 will transfer to the 180. Same sprocket, same bars, all that jazz. Now this 180 has a 1/4 pitch on it, I believe. I gotta pull it down. Look guys, I don't always look at my setups anymore. Just grab and go because I know what it's gonna do for me. Oh, this particular 180 has a 3/8 pitch, 14-inch bar, 43 gauge chain. So that's stock sprocket. Instead of a 16-inch bar, we put a 14 on it, size it down, cuts faster, all right? But you can put 1/4 pitch sprocket, carving bar, dime tip bar, if you will, on that. I don't see a need to have all that power. If I'm gonna detail with my 170, I could get a little faster blocking out of small to medium carvings out of this saw though, all right? A little more power. So, smaller homeowner saws right here. Now, if you want to step it up and you want to get a detail saw that's a little bit lighter, you got some money to spend, and you say, okay, well, you know, I don't really want to get a 170. I got money to spend. I want to get a detail saw. We need a blocking saw first, right? But you could go cheap. You could get the 180 for a blocking saw, or you could go to a 211 or a 250. All right, we're gonna get up here soon. Right now we're kind of talking lower end, detailing small blocking saws, but we'll get to these other ones. So this was a choice for me. I've had some problems with this one over the years, on and off, mostly my own fault, but this saw does well in the sense of how you hold it, how it feels in your hand. It's a little, you got to get a little used to it as far as detail work because it handles differently than these two. These guys are very rigid. This has better anti-vibration in it. So if you've got a ton of detail work to do, you won't have as much fatigue. It's lighter. It feels better. It feels better when you're doing all this little stuff. Now, this particular saw is the MS-193. What is it? 193C. I think now it's the 194 or 195. Another saw that's similar is like the 200, the 201Cs. You do not want to buy a carving saw as a top handle saw. You don't have the same kind of control. Your wrists and your elbows are really gonna bother you if you're trying to carve like this all the time. So always get a back handle saw. This saw though is comparable. You get down, you know, it's a little about the same as your 180. You're not talking a big beefer here. It's not a blocker. You're talking about detail work. So it comes with a 3/8 usually, 14, 16-inch bar sometimes. I've got a dime tip bar on this guy as well. So this is my detail saw, and that 200 or that 160 is my detail saw as well. So I have two of them. Now this saw now has the quarter pitch sprocket, a dime tip hard nose carving bar from steel. It'll say carving bar, but it's a dime tip bar, and carving chain. Okay, so that all matches up. Now this is the newer style of their carving bar, so that number might be different. I haven't even looked, but the number on this bar is 3005-0003105, 12-inch, 64 drive lengths, 43 gauge, quarter pitch. Okay, you can use that information to get the chains to go with it. So we've gone from battery saws, which smaller carvings also utilized as detail saws, because you don't need, it's not always a dime tip bar for detail work. Sometimes I need a roll nose, which those have sprockets for different little things as you get into bigger projects. Let's take a step up. Okay, we have the MS211, then we have an MS250, a 251C, and then a 271. The 211, in my opinion, is like that intermediate saw. I'm not quite sure if I need it, not quite sure if I want it. Runs fine, cuts fine, but it hovers between the 180 and the 250. You know, if you turn a 170 or a 193 or a 180 into your detail saw, do you really need the 211 for blocking? I was able to get this used, put money in it, fixed it up, and all that kind of stuff for my other channel, which, by the way, if you guys haven't hit subscribe here, give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe. And if you haven't checked out my other channel, check it out, Kyle's Chainsaw Rescue. Go there, give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe as well. Growing that channel every day, which has been pretty awesome. The 211 though, decent little saw, comes with a 3/8 pitch usually. This one, I think they got 43 gauge chain on them. Like, a lot of this stuff can change, guys. They change stuff over the years. This one's got a 16-inch bar. It's an alright little blocker. You know, it's not like my first grab. I'll grab one of my 250s first. But it does okay. You know, you gotta, we'll get into it. Hold on. So there's a 211. Now, the next saw is a 250. I got a 16-inch bar. I put a 3/8 pitch sprocket on this, so 3/8 chain. That's 43 gauge. This will run 50 gauge. And a lot of times these will come with 3/8 to, well, not a lot of times. A lot of times these come with 325 at 50 gauge. So I've sized it down. I put a 3/8 with 43 gauge chain. It runs fast. It's cutting like a knife, hot knife through butter. You gotta be careful though. You're running smaller chain. You can burn up your bars quicker. You can break that chain. Got a lot of power on a small chain. So, you know, all this stuff, you do at your own risk. This is your choice to do this, you know. You know, you can void warranties. You can run into those sorts of troubles if, you know, you make these modifications to your own brand new saw out of the box. So that's stuff just to keep in mind. You know, we are creating an item to do a thing that we want. That isn't always, you know, the company is not always like, yeah. So just keep those things in mind. 250s. I love my 250. I got two of these. I bought one used. We did some work on it on my other channel. Got it running like a top. Those are go-to medium to large blockers for me. I will block those saws. See anything that's 3 feet and taller, those saws are on it. The 251C, got this as a used unit. It was all smashed and bashed. Put a bunch of money into it just to get it back together and running so that I could use it and turn it into a workhorse for me. This has the 325 sprocket, so it's running a bigger chain, 50 gauge. I'll use it for bigger blocking. This 251C has an easy start. It's also got a primer on it. This primer bulb. This pulls over easier than the 250. So if you're getting into carving and you're having problems with that 250, they're harder to start than the 251s. I like them more, but just something to think about. Now the last saw that I'm really going to bring up today is the 271 Farm Boss. That's got a 20-inch bar. I believe it's running 325 50 gauge chain. This is a great blocker. Large carvings, medium to large carvings, I'll run it. Now I have other bigger saws. You know, we got like an 039, we got the 440 Magnum, and things like that. But as beginners and getting into an intermediate level of carving, you don't really need anything that big unless you can catch a deal and get it early. Go for it. Now, okay, Kyle, we went through the whole lineup of saws. What do you recommend, right? What should I buy? What are the two saws I should start with, right? We know the one saw you should start with, easy. If you want to get into it for the lowest cost, it's the 170, then add those other things to it, right? If you got about 500, 600, 700, about probably almost 700 by the time you trick it out, you can get yourself like a 193, 194C sprocket, carving bar, 2 chains. There it is. This is your dedicated detail carving saw. But if you buy this for that, you have to know you got to buy something else for blocking. So that's something else for blocking, you know, maybe a 250. You're going to do medium to large carvings. Hopefully all this is making sense, guys. You know, I am smack dab in the middle of town, okay? That's where I live. Now, when we're in this particular tent, we are in town. So lately we run a lot of battery saws. If you're in that sort of area, battery's a great option. It's a lot quieter, right? It's not super loud. You can do all kinds of work with these units. You really can. Cardinals, bears, little moose, all kinds of things this big to even 3-footers that are, you know, really, really nice stuff. You get into bigger stuff, you want to be able to cut faster, you got to get bigger saws. You'll have to go gas. But if you want to do this for money, even if you want to do this for fun, a battery can be a good option for you. Battery, I know we're kind of taking a step back. Battery though, like to get into these pro units, I mean guys, you're talking 300 to 400 plus just for the saw. Then you're talking almost $300 for one of these batteries, and you're talking over $300 for one of these batteries, okay? And then you got to get yourself a charger, which can be anywhere from 80 to 150 bucks. Then if you want to buy 2 batteries, you're talking about an investment, you know what I mean? But you're quiet. Now, saws I don't have that you could look into are the AK line. This is the homeowner series line of battery saws. They run AK batteries, not these, okay? You can get an MSA 70 kit in a box. I don't have one, so I can't give you all the specs off the top of my head on it, but you get a battery and a charger and the saw in the box, and I want to say you're going to be just under 400 bucks, around $400. Boom, there's that battery saw. Now, that saw though, smaller, all right? Might not be a ton of power. I haven't ran one. I've just seen some other people running them. A lot of guys use those as a detail saw. They are not blocking big stuff. You could do cardinals, little bears, small things, but a lot of guys will put a dime tip bar on it and use it for blocking. Guys, gals, everybody's a guy, all right? Chill. So that's kind of the battery stuff. I stick with Pro because my Pro batteries all work in every saw. That's why I've got. I like the idea of keeping things consistent. Now, if this channel does well this year, I'm going to try to get some AK, the AK line. That way there, you know, we can have conversations on that as well. Now, you know, Kyle, if you could pick 2 gas saws to carve with, if you could go to the store, right, and you could grab 2 saws and say, I'm going to run my business off these saws for my first year or first 2 years and make money, what would they be without breaking the bank? Keep in mind, it still costs money, right? would still have to be an MS-170 or a 180 with a quarter pitch sprocket and the dime tip carving bar with 2 chains, and then an MS-250. Even if that 250 is left stock, run it. Or the 3/8 pitch 43 gauge chain with a 16-inch bar. So the 250 and the 170 carry the weight. You know what I mean? Like, they could carry the weight of a small business carver, and then you could branch off into this other stuff as you go. Hopefully this video wasn't too long for you guys. If you guys have questions, you know, feel free to ask. A lot of this is just opinion based, you know what I mean? So I'm sure we'll get the Husqvarna guy and that Go guy and the whatever guy, and that's fine. You know what I mean? You like what you like, and that's okay. That's like a Ford and a Chevy guy having an argument about 2 trucks that are good when they're good and they suck when they suck. You know what I mean? Same thing here. Husqvarna's great when it's great, sucks when it sucks. Guess what? Steel's great when it's great, sucks when it sucks. It's all the same deal. What it comes down to though is, can you get parts? Can you get service? Can you work on it yourself? How reliable is it in the long run? For me, it's these guys. This is what I rely on. Now, I have other people ask me questions about running other brands. The Walt chainsaw, the Makita chainsaw, corded chainsaws that are just other brands. I don't run that stuff. I don't. If that's what you have, if you got a Poulan, if you got a Craftsman, and that's what you're starting to carve with, start with it. Run it. You know, I've had plenty of people be like, oh, I don't have that kind of money, but I want to carve. That's fine. Run what you got and start with what you have and save, right? Try to make some sales and save. You're going to be happier when you can run a saw that's more reliable, when you can make these different upgrades to them for carving and detailing and things. It's going to be easier to find those parts, and they're going to be easier to work on. They're going to be easier to service. And, you know, again, I guess it's opinionated, but for me, some of that's fact. Poulons, a lot of guys would rather have a Poulan over a steel. I don't know why. I personally have worked on them. I see gas lines fall apart. I don't care for them. I've seen that with some other bigger brands too. I just don't care for them. Don't get me wrong, beginner, you got a Poulan Pro sitting in the shed and you want to start? Yeah, get your safety gear on, fix that log down so it ain't gonna move, start hacking away, have fun. Why not, right? And if you get pretty good with that saw, you're gonna be even better when you got something else that's set up for it, right? You're going to be able to take that to a whole nother level really, really quick. Yeah, you know, again, just opinionated, just my thoughts on it, trying to help you guys out. I know the video is running kind of long, but hopefully it was a lot of useful information for you guys. Keep an eye out this summer though. I've got some off-brand saws, some other brands that we'll probably do some more very, very beginner tutorials with. If I can get these Poulons running, if I can get this Craftsman running that I've got. I've also got some vintage saws I'm considering carving with, but I don't know yet because there's no kickback. There's no chain brake, you know, anti-kickback system in them, so that kind of makes you a little skeeved out in case that thing decides to eat in your leg, you know, kick back in your face. There's nothing there to potentially stop it. So anyway, that's where I'm at. If you guys have questions, comment below. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe if you guys haven't already. Also, be sure to check out the merch shelf or the merch store. And a big shout out to my members. You know, first, thank you to everybody that buys merch. You help support the channel. I don't get a huge cut on those merch prices. When you see some of them prices, I know they're kind of high. That's Teespring. I get like $1 or $2 per hoodie, t-shirt, whatever. I don't get a ton of money on some of that stuff, and I actually bring those prices down to what I think is a little more affordable because they want a lot of money sometimes, and I think it's ridiculous, but it's the world we live in. Anyway, members, if you're a member or you want to be a member to the channel, you know, check out the join tab on the main page. Members, you guys are awesome. You support the channel monthly, regardless, whatever tier you're at, you help support the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Like, thank you so much. If you learn off my videos and you help and you want to give back, becoming a member at whatever tier works for you is a great way to do that. Buying channel merch is a great way to do that. Those things help out more than you guys know in keeping the channel running and going, and just a lot of those things. So I really do appreciate it. I really hope this video helped you guys out. Give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.